the Trump administration's continued attack on migrants and people coming to the United States continues, and it's basically an effort to keep people of color from immigrating to the U.S. because the Republicans and the Trump administration, realize they probably would not vote for them. So if they can control the electorate, who gets into the country, who gets to leave it, that type of thing, then they would be able to, protect their power, stay in power, hold office, because otherwise, they see the changing demographics of the country, and by far and away the, people of color, Hispanic people, African Americans, Black people, by and large, support Democratic candidates because usually they're going to be, have better policies and platforms and just rhetoric towards those populations. And it's like, the Republicans and Trump at this point aren't even, trying to hide how overtly racist and xenophobic they are, and this story is just another example of that. So, from Common Dreams, Trump to issue new rule restricting visas for pregnant women and latest attack on most vulnerable. If quote, if you think this won't be used to blatantly discriminate against immigrants based on gender and age, I have a bridge to sell you. I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you, I should say. In the Trump administration's latest effort to restrict travel to the U.S., the U.S. State Department is planning to issue new guidance to consular officers, empowering them to refuse visas to pregnant travelers. Jesus H. Christ, what? Oh, man, it's like, I understand not all people who voted for Donald Trump or, avowed white nationalists, like people, David Duke type characters, but if you are supporting him now, you're supporting somebody who is, overtly racist, vehemently anti, immigrant, and he said so many horrible things, not only in words, but some of his, policy actions, like this, telling these consular officers to turn away pregnant women coming to the United States if they're planning on giving birth here. Just how just messed up and immoral that is. Again, affecting the most vulnerable people coming to the United States, possibly to to give birth, and that's their right to do that if they so choose. But it even just deters, and I think this is more the idea of this rule or law that Trump is trying to implement, is the idea that if this is in place, it just discourages more people, more migrants seeking a better life potentially in the United States. It just discourages them and makes it less likely that they would migrate to the United States. So I think that's kind of one of the reasons that Trump is doing this, and it's again an attempt to keep the electorate as white and old as possible, because those people are more likely to vote Republican. Under the guidance, consular officers would be expected to deny visas to women if they suspect she is coming to the U.S. primarily to give birth. So what is this? These consular officers are gonna see if, these women coming to the United States have a baby bump, or like, hey, can I see your ultrasound? How far along are you? How long are you gonna be visiting the U.S.? Are you gonna be planning to give birth here? It's just so ridiculous and just nuts on its face, and just again, if you're a supporter of Trump, you're allowing this, this type of behavior to happen, and it's sick. When you single out the most vulnerable, the cruelty is the point, tweeted Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat of New York, in response to the rule, which was first reported by BuzzFeed. Pregnant women. This administration is now targeting pregnant women. When you single out the most vulnerable, the cruelty is the point. Indeed. Hashtag abolish ICE. Hashtag breakup CBP. That's Customs and Border Patrol, and ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Yes, definitely abolish ICE. Break up CBP. Totally support that too. And again, it's the Republicans, the conservative politicians, pundits like to say, oh, the immigrants are here taking your job and using up all these resources. That's why, if you're not doing so well, if you're a little bit hard on your luck, it's their fault. And they want, these, lower income, middle income people to think it's the immigrants' fault why they're not doing so well in the United States anymore, instead of looking at the, wealthy oligarchic class who control our politicians and government to a large extent, and our politicians subsequently do the bidding of the top 1%, and in particular the top 0.1% of the population. And so instead of, obviously, the people in power don't want, these lower income or middle income voters to think it's the, these very wealthy and powerful people who, have rigged and set up the economy in such ways so that they get a vast majority of the benefits while everybody else is left fighting over crumbs. That would be the correct analysis to take, a class analysis, and what kind of Bernie talks about. It's not these the most vulnerable people, the people with the least amount of power and clout and influence. Those people aren't the ones who are making your life more difficult or more miserable, or making it less likely you're going to get a good paying job, or that you don't have, universal health care, all these things. It's the people in power, the wealthy oligarchic class, and the, these huge corporations who have, again, set up our economy and government to benefit them at the detriment of everybody else. And it kind of goes back to this idea. It's socialism for the wealthy and the, corporations, and it's capitalism for everybody else. And they want you to think it's the immigrants who are the problem, and that couldn't be further from the truth. The Trump administration appears to be cracking down on women who travel to the U.S. to give birth and obtain automatic citizenship for their babies, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This happened in fewer than 10,000 cases out of 3.8 million births in 2017. And again, even if 10,000 people were coming here to give birth, so their child, is automatically a U.S. citizen, who cares? Good for them. Their kid was born here, and and they get some potential advantages out of that. That's totally fine. Any non-immigrant visa applicant who you have reason to believe will give birth during her stay in the United States is presumed to be traveling for the primary purpose of obtaining U.S. citizenship for the child. The new guidance for consular officers reads, this applicant can overcome this presumption if you find that the primary purpose of travel is not obtaining U.S. citizenship for the child. I mean, this is just so sick and immoral that the Trump administration is literally just trying to, create a white ethno-state and, keep out, and I bet if it was um, you know, people from, let's say, Nordic or European countries that were coming here to give birth so their kids would have U.S. citizenship. The Trump administration wouldn't be, having any issues with it. It's they're concerned with where these immigrants, where these migrants are coming from, and Trump has said as much in the past, where he wants more people coming from the Nordic countries. And why Nordic people aren't coming to the United States to give birth is because they already have universal health care in their countries that is by far and away superior in so many ways to the U.S. for-profit health insurance system. Trump has said repeatedly that his administration is considering trying to end birthright citizenship. Jesus Christ. Which makes most baby, what? Oh wait, okay. Which makes most babies U.S. citizens if they are born on U.S. soil, regardless of their parents' immigration status. Yes, that should be the case. If you're born in the U.S., that should guarantee you U.S. citizenship, and that should definitely stay the same. And they shouldn't change that. And again, it's they're trying to keep the electorate as white, as conservative, and generally as old as possible, because even though, unfortunately, older people tend to be more conservative and more Republican, even though it would be in their best interest to support, let's say, a candidate like Bernie Sanders over Donald Trump, because he actually advocates for, policies and ideas that help protect things that really benefit seniors, like Medicare, Social Security, and wants to expand them, while Trump and the Republicans are totally fine privatizing it and cutting those, very important services that help, our seniors and our older people. Sarah Pierce, an analyst with the Migration Policy Institute, told BuzzFeed that the rule is a, quote, largely symbolic way to send a message to people traveling to the United States. Again, that's kind of the point I was making earlier. It's largely just the message that gets sent out there, saying that, if you're pregnant, might have a little baby belly showing, you're not going to get let into the United States because of that. And so it just kind of deters people from even thinking about wanting to come to the United States, potentially to, have their baby, if they're going to be, turned away. It's just it's just disgusting. Once consular officers employed by the State Department will be permitted to turn women away if they are suspected of planning to give birth in the U.S. So again, it's just ridiculous on its face, but how, if they suspect it, because they appear super pregnant, and once they get across, into the U.S., then they're going to give birth, or they need an ultrasound. Just so ridiculous. It's just nuts. And then this Philip Wolgen person is making the point, this is only supposed to apply to consular officers, but he thinks it could definitely be expanded to, the U.S. southern border, and, the CBP, the Border Patrol down there, could institute that if, they probably haven't already, honestly. This is just not. And then this totally just juxtaposes the, I don't know if moral or just rhetorical and I guess actual kind of, I was going to say schizophrenia, but that just paints those with that in a bad light. Just the total juxtaposition between Donald Trump will be the first sitting U.S. president to attend the March for Life on Friday, which is basically protest the Roe v. Wade decision that the Supreme Court made in 1973, which granted a women's right to have an abortion if they so choose. And so Trump is trying to bar pregnant women from coming to the United States to give birth, but you're attending the Right for Life March because you're concerned about, children being born and coming into this world. Do you not see how totally and utterly inconsistent your reasoning is there, Trump? Obviously, he doesn't give one shit about that, and I don't even necessarily think he is against Roe v. Wade, but I think he wants to shore up that support among the evangelical Christian vote, who are obviously, vehemently opposed to, women's reproductive health care. Civil rights attorney Joe Cower considered the implications of the president's attendance at the event at a time when the administration is rolling back the rights of asylum seekers who want their children to grow up as a U.S. citizens, and pregnant women who may need life-saving treatment that they can only get in the United States. Again, just the juxtaposition. You're supposedly concerned about, women doing what they want with their own bodies, which is a huge issue on its own, and, wanting to control their reproductive health. It's just totally authoritarian and just gross like GTFO, man, GTFO. And, and so you supposedly, want all these women who might be considering having abortions to have those kids, but then on the other hand, once those kids are born, you want them to grow up in a hugely unequal society, that doesn't guarantee health care or college. And, if you're born to a family that's low income, you're more likely to stay low income. If you're born to a high, earning family, you're more likely to stay in that position. The United States has a very low level of social mobility, contrary to popular belief. So, the Trump and the Republicans are all concerned about, women getting abortions, but then when those kids are born, they could care less, and that's evident by the, policies and platforms that they advocate for. And I mean, and there was a good chunk of white women that supported Donald Trump in 2016, but if you're concerned about reproductive health at all, having personal autonomy over your own personal body, then just don't see why you would support Donald Trump, as well as, he's horrible on the economy, doesn't support universal health care, he's horrible on the environment, he's horribly corrupt. It's another example of his blatant racism and xenophobia and anti-immigrant rhetoric and policies. So we'll finish it with this little quote. Helping vulnerable pregnant women maximize their chances of a safe and healthy pregnancy and improve life prospects for the child is not the type of life that his administration and the GOP care about protecting. And that summed it up very succinctly and nicely, and we'll leave it there. If you got any comments, please leave them in the comment sections down below. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already to get that content coming to you. Peace. Much love.